At the start of episode 6 in the flashback, we see Jenny going out, and outside her house she is surprised by Helen, who looks anxious and insistent about a tape that she wants from Jenny. Jenny gets rid of her and leaves with her friend. At the present moment, Pete is in the emergency room where Tom is briefing about his injuries. Meanwhile, Zoe and family are at their home consumed by grief. Emma and Sophie visit Tom at the hospital where Pete has been stabilized. While outside, Sophie asks Tom to leave the investigation to the police. Emma goes inside to see Pete. She is surprised by Tom, who thinks he has seen her before. He goes online to check her Facebook and finds some familiar faces in her profile. She comes back to see Pete. Tom asks her if she is related to Karina Castle, who was in med school with him and Pete. She tells him that Karina was her mother but passed away a few years back. She also discloses that Pete is her father. She wanted to meet him and tell him about her. She was waiting for the right moment. But first he was a suspect in Jenny's disappearance, and now this happened. Tom consoles her that Pete is going to be fine. Outside, Tom asks Scott about the guys who stabbed Pete. He claims he doesn't know them and returns Pete's wallet. Tom wants to know about Jenny, and he drops a bombshell that Jenny was told a secret by Rachel the night she died, something she never wanted Tom to know. Tom shares this revelation with Sophie in the car. They recall the night 1 year ago when he was in the hospital and ran into Sophie. She took him out for a drink to unwind. He felt relaxed and had a few drinks turned into many. Then they both were drunk and started to make out, only to realize that they both are married. He looked at his phone with 8 missed calls from Jenny, rushed home worried, and found out the heartbreaking truth that Rachel had passed away. Back to the present day, Tom, desperate for answers, asks Carrie about anything that Jenny might have mentioned about the mom the night she died. She didn't know anything but told that Helen, their neighbor, came to visit Mom that night. Tom is checking Jenny's iPad and sees some photos of Rachel with Helen from their school days. Next morning, Tom heads to Helen's house, but no one answers the door. Meanwhile, Jojo and his family are locked in jail. They feel a profound sense of isolation, cut off from the world they once knew. They regret the past actions, grappling with guilt, replaying the moments that led them here. Jojo decides to give his statement to the police. He states that he got a call from CI about the party which got out of hand. When he arrived home, Chris, who was drunk, refused to leave, and after a physical altercation, Chris slipped and drowned. His wife and daughter knew nothing about it, and he took care of the body alone. At home, Tom and Carrie are deeply worried about Pete's condition. Tom asks her to get ready for the vigil. While scrolling through photos in her iPad, he discovers that Henry was also at the party and had blood on his shirt. Sophie and Emma visit Neil and Zoe and inform them that Jojo has confessed about Chris's death. Now we see many people arriving at the vigil for Chris. Neil attempts to thank everyone for coming, but his overwhelming grief makes him speechless. Emma, however, is not convinced by Jojo's confession and thinks that he is lying. After the vigil, Tom stops Henry and asks about the night and why there was blood on his sweater. Initially, he refuses to answer, but when they are interrupted by Sophie, he reveals that there was a fight between Chris and Mike, and he pulled them apart. He didn't say it earlier because it's hard for him to fit in, as his mother is a cop. Emma gets a crucial call from the lab that the time of death was earlier when Jojo was still at the hotel, so he couldn't have done it. Zoe is taking a walk alone when she receives a text from someone who wants to meet her. She deletes it. Carrie is deeply upset as some girl at the vigil accused Jenny of being a murderer, and if not, why didn't she come back? At the station, Emma is interrogating Jojo and asks him why he lied in his confession. He thought Chris died from a drug overdose that Sia sold him. Emma informs him that Chris' death wasn't drug-related, but because he was assaulted and forcibly drowned. Tom is texting Carrie to come home early and sees that she has left her phone home. He sees that she has been texting Jenny, but none of them have been read. Suddenly, he sees that all the texts are read. Excited and anxious, he immediately asks her to reply. Jenny responds saying she needs help. He responds and immediately calls a tech guy to track the location of the sender. He is stunned to learn that the messages were sent from his home network. He rushes to her room and frantically searches the whole house, but she is nowhere to be found. He then goes outside and looks at his neighbor Helen's house. He goes inside and sees that there is a fire blazing and someone trapped within it. A man is watching from the outside.